So you, like me, are looking to leave the UK. In this video, I'm going to go through just some of the things that you need to know about the countries and the possibilities that you have in front of you. The great news for you and me is that there are pretty much endless possibilities as to where you can go. In the last video, we went through the difference between nominal GDP here in the UK, which from 1990 had allegedly gone up about 81%, versus real GDP, which is GDP minus inflation, which shows life in the UK has actually decreased by 30%. Here is a website linked below called residencies.io, and on here you can see all of the visas which are open to you here coming from the UK to all these different countries that you may possibly want to go to. You can look for Eastern European countries, and this is all of the visas and everything that you'd need to do. Some are just basically you just need to prove a certain amount of income from stocks and shares, rental properties, maybe a pension. Sometimes you need to invest a certain sum of money. And oftentimes, you can just basically get a work permit and work in the country and earn your way to residency. So with so many options on the table, which ones do you want to take? Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the real GDP figures, list every single country in the world and find out which ones are actually the growing economies that if you're looking to move for the next like 20, 30 years, maybe you got young kids, you want to move somewhere which is growing and prosperous, where there's real future ahead for your kids in that country. This website is the International Monetary Fund, the dreaded IMF, but what they do is they get the real GDP growth of each country each year, and here's the list for 2024. And we can see here all of the GDP figures. There are, hundreds of countries listed here. So what I've done for you to make this a lot easier is listed it all out in order in this nice little spreadsheet. And up here you can see this one, Guyana, had 43.8%. This is the top performing over 2024. Basically anything below this black line here between Seychelles and Bahrain, about 3%, is the sort of halfway marker, so anything above that is kind of above average, anything below is below average. Here you see a below average country. The United States hasn't done particularly well under Joe Biden. And then going down, the further down you get, you're going to come to some more sort of westernized type countries like Canada, Switzerland, Australia, and then going into the European stuff here like Belgium, France, Czech Republic. Here we got South Africa, the UK here down at just 1.1% so far this year. Germany at 0%. You might have seen that Olaf Scholz recently just got the sack for having zero growth all year. And then shockingly, Ireland at minus growth. So Ireland actually going down all the way down to the bottom, where we got Sudan and South Sudan being the worst performing countries this year. But what we really want to focus on here is obviously looking at the best performing countries. So these countries right here, Guyana down, what I've done is basically took the top 40 countries in this list, everything down to China, and had a look to find out which ones actually spoke English. Because I would bet you that if you're looking to move abroad somewhere, it'd kind of be good if it was an English speaking country. Because if you're not a Spanish speaker, and well, it could take a long time to learn, particularly if you are a more elderly person like myself. So now we have all of the countries with the impressive Guyana right at the top there with 43.8%. That is actually a dominantly English speaking country. Thank goodness for that. We've also got India. So obviously India don't just speak English, but it is very commonly well known there. We've also got like Mauritius, Uganda, Antigua and Barbuda, Gambia, Philippines, Belize, Tanzania, a whole bunch of ones. And then you've got the red speaking ones. Now, again, when it comes to the EU, yes, we're not in the EU anymore. But the truth is, most EU countries don't speak English anyway. As we scroll down here, you can clearly see that most of the big long red patches, basically all of the European countries, like all of these here where you got Italy, Netherlands, Germany, all down there, and none of them speak English except for Ireland. So here's the kicker, guys. What we're looking at, the real-time GDP, is based on just this year's growth. And some of those ones, like Guyana, 43%, is pretty ridiculous. It could just be a recovery from a massive slump the year before, and possibly it could be like 20 years of decline and then a sudden uptick. So let's check out to see just which ones of those English speaking ones that have done well recently, which ones are actually worth moving to. Starting at the lower end here, we have the Marshall Islands, which you can see has performed pretty well. It was pretty flat, but it's recently gone up quite well. And then we've got Malta, which is just steady growth all the way up there. And Kenya, again, done really, really well since 2000. So the last 20 odd years have been really, really good for Kenya. Liberia, I think we can cut out of the list because Liberia looks pretty awful. Nothing at all like Tanzania, which looks fantastic. So Tanzania is just basically doubled their economy in the last 20 years. Brilliant stuff there. Belize looks, again, pretty awful. Once you put inflation on top of that, it's going to look terrible. I wouldn't recommend Belize. Philippines, pretty good. And I know myself, having been there back in 2010 and then in 2015, and the differences were incredible. And then we went back in 2017. And again, there's just more growth, more prosperity, more buildings going up, more shopping centers. The place is incredible. Then we got Kiribati, that I've never heard of before, and not particularly great growth from there. Gambia, again, looks absolutely awful. I would not recommend moving to Gambia. Same with Antigua and Barbuda, that just seemed to sort of stop growing in the 90s. Uganda looks reasonable, and certainly nothing wrong with Mauritius. Mauritius does look fairly good. And India obviously is absolutely incredible. It's probably the best one there in terms of GDP, except for maybe Guyana, which is the top one. And you can see that it had been growing since 2000 and then just recently rocketed up. Absolutely incredible. Now, Guyana, if you didn't know, is this country right here next to Venezuela. So here's Venezuela, here's Guyana in South America. So this country right here has done particularly well. Now, one country that isn't on the list is Argentina. Earlier this year, my wife went out to Argentina.
Morning, everyone. We're on the bus now and to our flight going to Patagonia.
We're from Wales here in the UK, and Patagonia is like a Welsh colony from way back before the First World War. And they've kept a lot of the sort of traditional Welsh sort of stuff, obviously the language, and also the old Welsh churches and stuff like that. And a lot of buildings also look very sort of old British Empire style. It's a great country, and if you are looking for something a little bit more British, that could work, but you are going to have to learn Spanish, which is why, sadly, it's not in the list. So Buenos Aires here is the capital, and apparently it's very westernized, very much like a sort of European type city. But right down the south here somewhere is Patagonia in the middle of nowhere. Others on the list is the Philippines, which is all the way over here. You've got Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, all the same sort of place here, right here in Africa, and it is a beautiful bit of East African coastline. So I got a friend here in the UK. She's from Kenya. She's one of these that came over on some sort of story, and she wanted to come here to work so that she could earn like 20 to 30,000, because in Kenya, she said that you can buy a 5-bedroom beachfront property in Kenya for about 20 to 30,000. So her plan was to come here, work for 2 or 3 years to save up the money, and then go back over, because like most people coming from these African countries, they think when they're looking at salaries here in the UK that they can live as cheap as they can in Africa. They can come here, they can make lots of money and then go back home again. Unfortunately, when they come here, they realize how expensive the rent is, how much taxes there are, and how just everything is just so much more expensive over here, that she's went from maybe staying here 2 to 3 years to maybe 20 years to try and save up the money. Unfortunately, the cost of living in the UK is absolutely ridiculous, and for most people, realistically, it's just not worth it. Just check out all of this absolutely gorgeous beachfront property right here. Just there is so much of it, and there's pretty much nothing there. Look at that. You can have these huge pieces of land right along the beach here for 20 to 30,000 pounds. Okay, so awesome, but what about religion? So here in the UK, it's the sort of Judeo-Christian religion. Now, some of you might not want to move to a country with, you know, like Islamic religion or something oppressive, and they're going to want to kill you. Even someone like India, the Hindus, obviously they've got a problem with the Islamists trying to get in from Pakistan. And also the Christians, they're not particularly fond of either.
In May, a Hindu mob paraded naked two Christian women. One had been reportedly gang raped. Several videos on social media showed mobs also burning down churches.
So you could potentially find yourself in a bit of trouble in a country like that. So if that is a concern for you, I've listed all of those countries right here for you, so you can see mostly they're Christians, so, and English speaking. So I think the two sort of go hand in hand. So mostly they're going to be sort of ex-British Empire type countries, except for the Philippines, which was never part of the British Empire. None of these are European countries. I know, like, after EU, everyone was panicking because now we felt stuck in the UK, like you can't get out. It's absolute lies. There is tons of options for you across the British Commonwealth of countries. So let's imagine that you wanted to go to Kenya. What can you do? How can you get in there? All you need to do is research the Kenyan immigration services online. You've got different permits available. Class A, that's for prospecting, mining. Class B for agriculture or animal husbandry. Class 3, a prescribed profession, employment. So you're going to be employed by some sort of company working out there in Kenya. Then you got manufacturing. Oh, here's the business one. So business, trade and consultancy. So that would be class G. And then religious stuff. You know, if you're a member of a church, you may be able to get out there. And then ordinary residents. So this basically is for people that are 35 years and over. And all you need to do, I think, is just have so much money in the bank. Yeah, this is it. So you just need documentary proof of an annual assured income of $24,000. So in pounds, maybe about £20,000. That can come from rental income or from stocks and shares or from a pension, just some sort of like guaranteed income coming in on an annual basis. Proof of that, and you are off to Kenya. Very, very easy. Now, if Kenya is a bit too warm and you want to be heading down somewhere a bit further down south, maybe to Zanzibar in Tanzania, then you just head over to the Tanzania immigration services here, and you'll see that there's, again, lots of different types of permanents to get residency. Class A for employed foreigners, or you've got issued to foreigners employed by companies and institutions, and then you've got the missionaries and students and all that sort of visa then as Class C. Class A, as a business owner, it's going to cost you $2,000, not exactly going to break the bank. And then you've got for peasants, so I don't know what they mean by peasants, $50. We got Class B for basically for employees, so employees in different industries, private companies, etc. £1,500. Not much. Again, this is dollars, not pounds. And then Class C for missionaries and whatnot with the church, that's just $500 for that visa. Or you may opt instead to go to the Philippines. Then what you're going to need to do is invest 75,000 US dollars into some sort of business which is going on there, which is part of what the government want you to invest in. So it can be like fishing and agriculture. It could be like large property developments, and but you can't be like your own personal home or something. Okay, so it's got to be some sort of business type venture out in the Philippines. But there is lots of other ways that you could do it as well. Just check out this website, residencies.io, see what probably is going to work for you and your family, and I'll see you again in the next video.